I've always said that trading isn't about the market. It's about your relationship with it. The market doesn't care what you think, hope, or believe. It only reflects the collective behavior of everyone participating in it. The chart doesn't whisper secrets. It simply mirrors back your own state of mind. Every tick, every move is neutral. But the meaning you assign to it is what determines whether you experience growth or destruction. That's the essence of trading psychology. Most traders believe success comes from information, a special method, a secret pattern, a hidden edge. But let me ask you, if information were the key, wouldn't every well-read trader already be rich? No. What separates winners from everyone else is not knowledge but mental structure, the ability to stay disciplined, patient, and objective when uncertainty is all there is. Winning trades are born from alignment with probability, not prediction. Every trader faces defeat in this business, every single one. The difference is how they interpret that experience. If you see losses as punishment, you'll suffer. If you see them as feedback, you'll evolve. The market keeps teaching the same lessons until you truly learn them. And yes, tuition rises with each repetition. The careless are always re-enrolled. When I began my journey, I didn't know fundamentals. I didn't analyze earnings, and I didn't chase tips. What I learned was how to listen, not to the noise, but to the flow of price, to the energy of the crowd. Price contains all information that matters, but only a trader with an open, non-attached mind can actually hear it. Most traders can't wait. They crave excitement, confirmation, and certainty. But markets don't reward emotional need. They reward consistency of process. A winning trade doesn't start when you enter it. It starts when you commit to waiting for a setup that aligns with your rules and beliefs. Most traders lose because they act from fear of missing out, not from confidence in probability. They mistake motion for opportunity and end up reacting instead of observing. Haven't you felt that impulse, that urge to do something? That impulse is not intuition, it's emotional imbalance. The big money isn't in trading constantly, it's in waiting for alignment. Patience is not passive. It's active awareness without interference. I've seen traders build fortunes simply by waiting for the right moment. And I've seen them lose everything by needing to act. You can be right about direction and still lose money if your mindset isn't right. Do you know what it takes to stay calm while the market moves against you? That's where true psychological skill comes in. The market exposes your emotions, fear when you're losing, greed when you're winning, doubt when you're uncertain. Each emotion distorts perception. Fear tells you to protect too early. Greed tells you to hold too long. Doubt tells you not to act when opportunity appears. Those voices come from your beliefs, not from the market. The professional trader learns to listen only to price, to what is, not what he wants. A chart is not a prophecy. It's a mirror of human behavior. Patterns repeat because human responses repeat. When prices break resistance, it's simply collective belief turning from fear to confidence. When they fall through support, it's belief collapsing back into fear. The chart reflects collective psychology. But the winning trader doesn't get absorbed into that crowd. He observes it objectively, detached. You cannot follow the crowd and beat it. You must think and act differently. And sometimes the highest skill is doing nothing, waiting with total confidence and no emotional discomfort. That's true psychological strength. Most traders, though, can't stand to be flat. They equate being out of the market with being wrong or missing out. But here's a question. Do you make money by trading more or by waiting for the right opportunity? The trader who must always do something pays the market instead of getting paid by it. The winning trader chooses carefully, like a sniper, patient, prepared, emotionally neutral. Every successful trade begins long before execution. It's born from preparation, identifying the setup, defining the risk, knowing what invalidates your edge. But do you have the patience to wait for confirmation? Or do you jump because you fear missing out? That fear of missing out is the most expensive illusion in trading. I've sat for days, sometimes weeks, without taking a trade because nothing lined up. People thought I was missing opportunities, but I was aligning with probability. When the signal came, I acted decisively, without hesitation. And that's when I made money. Most traders lose because they won't wait. They see cash as idle instead of powerful. Cash is a position of control. Now let's talk about losses. Every trader takes them. The difference lies in how you interpret and respond to them. The losing mindset denies, hides, or rationalizes losses. The winning mindset accepts them as part of the distribution, simply one of many outcomes. Do you cut your losses instantly, or do you hope the market proves you right? Hope is not strategy. It's resistance to uncertainty. The market doesn't care what you hope. It only reflects reality. That's why you must surrender your ego. The moment you argue with the market, you lose alignment with truth. Your biggest enemy isn't volatility or manipulation. It's your own mental resistance. Fear, greed, impatience, pride. Until you master yourself, you can't align with the flow of the market. You might win occasionally, but without emotional control, you'll give it back, and more. The psychology of winning trades isn't about eliminating fear. It's about redefining it. Fear is information, a signal of perceived risk. The goal is to interpret it correctly, not deny it. The same with greed. It's simply the overextension of positive emotion. The professional trader recognizes these states and acts from awareness, not reaction. He takes profits when his plan tells him to, not when emotion tempts him to hold longer. And above all, never argue with the market. The market is never wrong. Price is truth, pure, neutral, objective. Everything else is opinion. Many intelligent traders go broke because they need to be right more than they need to be aligned. They argue with price, convinced their logic should prevail. But the market doesn't reward intellectual brilliance. It rewards mental flexibility. The market doesn't bend to your beliefs. You must align your beliefs with it. That's humility, and that's mastery. You must also think in terms of probabilities, not certainties. Every trade is just one outcome in a series. Your edge doesn't guarantee results. It guarantees consistency over time. That's why position sizing and risk control are psychological tools, not just mathematical ones. Can you accept being wrong gracefully? Can you manage risk so that no single trade threatens your identity or your capital? The professional trader survives first, profits second. The market is the most honest mirror of who you are. It exposes your insecurities, magnifies your beliefs, and reflects your mental discipline, or lack of it. If you treat each loss as feedback instead of failure, you grow. Every loss is tuition in mastering yourself. Wealth in trading is not built through one big win, but through consistent execution of an edge over time. The gambler seeks excitement. The professional seeks alignment. The gambler chases outcomes. The professional trusts process. Wealth grows when you respect uncertainty and manage risk. Preservation comes before expansion. Remember this: the market is not your friend or enemy. It simply is. It mirrors back who you are in every moment. If you're disciplined, patient, and emotionally balanced, you'll see that reflected in your results. If you're reckless or attached, the market will show that too. The psychology of winning trades begins with self-awareness. Until you understand your own mind, you'll mistake your emotional reactions for market signals. You'll argue with price, defend losing positions, and project your beliefs onto a neutral reality. The market is always right, not morally, but factually. Price is the only truth that matters. Everything else is an illusion built by your beliefs. When you cling to your opinions while price moves the other way, that's ego at work. Pride destroys more traders than bad analysis ever will. You can't impose your will on the market. It doesn't care how much you know or how badly you want to be right. It only reflects your ability to stay aligned with what is. The moment you stop needing to be right, you open the door to consistent success. That's the psychology of winning trades, not control over the market, but mastery over yourself. Most traders take it personally when the market disagrees with them. Their ego becomes entangled with their analysis. When price moves the other way, they whisper, "It'll come back. It has to. I know I'm right." But the market doesn't have to do anything for you. It doesn't care how long you've held, how convinced you are, or how much you need to be right. The market simply expresses truth in motion, neutral, impersonal, and beyond persuasion. How many times have you seen traders sit helplessly, watching their accounts bleed, all because they couldn't emotionally accept being wrong? That's not trading. That's resistance to reality. When you argue with the market, you're not fighting numbers. You're fighting truth. Price is the purest form of truth in trading. It doesn't care about your logic, your expectations, or your theories. You can protest, you can rationalize, but none of that changes what is. The only real question is, do you want to be right or do you want to make money? Because those two are rarely the same pursuit. Like most traders, I learned this lesson painfully. I once had a position that I was certain about. I'd done my analysis. Everything lined up in my mind. When price began moving against me, I dismissed it as noise. I even added more, thinking conviction would compensate for reality. But price kept falling. Each tick lower wasn't the market attacking me. It was simply feedback that my belief didn't align with the collective belief. Yet I resisted. I told myself, it can't go lower. That resistance cost me more than money. It cost me emotional clarity. Have you been there? Holding on not because your edge was valid, but because your ego refused to surrender. The antidote to that suffering is humility, the willingness to accept that the market knows more than you do. Humility is not weakness, it's emotional freedom. The market is never wrong. Your job isn't to fight it, it's to stay aligned with it. But that's difficult for most people, because most people are attached to being right. They want to prove something, to themselves, to others, to the market. But trading is not about pride. It's about survival. And survival depends on adaptability, not stubbornness. The market doesn't reward rigidity, it rewards flexibility. The trader who can release attachment instantly, who can take a loss without resistance, who can reverse a position when the data shifts, that trader has a chance to win. The one who insists, who argues, who tries to force the market to validate him, that trader is finished before he even realizes it. Would you rather be flexible and alive, or stubborn and broke? There's an old truth. The market can stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent. That's not cynicism. That's reality. You might see logic, value, or fairness, But the market isn't bound by your version of logic. It's driven by perception, emotion, and probability, forces far greater than any one person's reasoning. You cannot fight collective behavior with opinion. The tape doesn't bend to logic. It reflects the psychology of the masses. The psychology of not arguing with the market isn't about giving up. It's about surrendering the illusion of control. It's about letting go of the emotional need to dictate outcomes. You surrender your ego, not your intelligence. You align with truth instead of resisting it. Most traders can't do that. They cling to opinions as if those opinions will save them. But in truth, those opinions often drown them. Have you ever mistaken an anchor for a lifeboat? When the market shows you something, it's giving you feedback, valuable, unbiased information. If price action tells you your opinion is wrong, why wouldn't you want to know that immediately? Why resist the very signal that can protect you? Why delay the truth? Isn't it better to accept feedback instantly than to argue with it? The market is a mirror, not a debate partner. Here's the great paradox of trading. The more you try to control the market, the more it controls you. The tighter you cling to being right, the more you suffer. But when you let go and when you accept uncertainty, when you follow what the market shows you, that's when you find freedom. That's when the stress dissolves, when your process becomes fluid, and when consistency begins. True mastery comes not from control, but from alignment. I've watched countless traders destroy themselves because they refused to listen. The market whispered its warning through small losses. Then it spoke louder through larger ones. Finally, it screamed through ruin. And still, they didn't listen. Because listening meant admitting they were wrong. And some traders would rather go broke than do that. Have you heard that voice inside? The one that says, "Hold on, just a little longer, you'll be proven right"? That voice doesn't come from intuition. It comes from ego. The market doesn't prove anyone right. It doesn't hand out validation. It only provides results. You either align with it or you don't. That's why the psychology of non-resistance is really the psychology of survival. If you can take losses quickly, without emotion, you preserve both capital and confidence. You live to trade another day. But if you argue, hesitate, or rationalize, you'll lose more than money. You'll lose your ability to act. Would you rather take a small, controlled loss or sink with the ship of your own certainty? Discipline is a muscle. You must train it deliberately. At first, cutting losses feels painful. Your pride resists it. But over time, you learn that exiting a losing trade is not defeat. It's strength. Each time you obey the market rather than your ego, you reinforce emotional mastery. That mastery becomes your greatest edge. Remember this: the market is impersonal. It doesn't punish or reward out of emotion. It simply mirrors back the balance of fear and greed, belief and disbelief. To argue with it is as absurd as arguing with gravity. The tide moves regardless of your preference. The professional doesn't resist it. He adjusts. He flows. Why should the market be any different? The trader who no longer argues with the market becomes truly free. Free from ego, pride, and the exhausting need to be right. He no longer chases certainty or validation. He acts from alignment, not emotion. That's when trading becomes effortless, not easy, but flow-based. Have you experienced that freedom? The peace that comes when you finally stop resisting and start accepting? That's where mastery begins. Trade only when the odds are in your favor. Do nothing when they aren't. That's the simplest rule, yet the hardest to follow. Everyone wants to be active. Everyone wants to participate. But the market doesn't pay you for participation. It pays you for alignment. Correctness doesn't come from action. It comes from probability. How often do you wait for genuine alignment before entering? How often do you act just because you can't stand being out? The difference between a gambler and a trader lies right there. When I began as a young trader, I thought every movement on the tape was opportunity. I reacted to every flicker, every fluctuation. Sometimes it worked, but mostly it didn't. Over time, I learned that most movements are noise, distractions designed to trigger emotion. The real moves, the ones worth waiting for, emerge only when all conditions align. Can you observe without reacting? Can you sit still when nothing aligns? That's the dividing line between randomness and mastery, between impulse and professionalism, between chaos and consistency. The market's flow, its line of least resistance, is always there. Your job is not to predict it, but to recognize and align with it. The trader's real job is to identify the market's path of least resistance and align with it. But that path isn't always visible, and it doesn't always offer favorable odds. There are periods when the market is indecisive, when opposing forces are locked in equilibrium, and the outcome is unclear. To trade during such moments isn't mastery, it's gambling. And gambling in trading terms means surrendering control to randomness. Why risk your capital when no edge exists? Why volunteer for uncertainty when you can preserve your freedom to act later? The hardest work in trading is psychological, waiting. To most people, sitting out feels like missing out. The market moves, price fluctuates, and the imagination paints pictures of profits that could have been. But those emotions are illusions. How many times have the moves you chased ended up reversing, punishing the impatience that refused to wait? The market has infinite ways to tease your impulses and expose your need for action. It feeds on impatience. The trader who waits for alignment escapes that trap. He doesn't pay emotional tuition for lessons he doesn't need. The odds only tilt in your favor when specific elements align. The first is direction, the trend. Never fight it. The trend represents the collective conviction of thousands of participants. When it's up, look for alignment with that upward energy. When it's down, align with decline. To trade against the dominant force is to fight a wave larger than you. Why swim against the current when you can flow with it? The second element is timing. Even within a clear trend, opportunity doesn't exist at every moment. Certain points, where risk is defined and reward potential expands, mark your true setups. Those moments are rare. Do you recognize them, or do you create trades out of boredom? The professional knows that the big money isn't earned by constant activity, but by disciplined precision. You wait until the odds converge. Then you act decisively. You wouldn't go all in at a poker table holding a weak hand, would you? Yet traders do exactly that every day, betting heavily when the odds are poor. The impulse is emotional. Impatience, greed, the hunger for engagement. But professionals understand. Their edge isn't in action, it's in restraint. Their strength lies in selectivity. They wait for what Mark Douglas called the edge moment, where the probability is high and risk is low, and when it appears, they execute without hesitation. How many times have you wasted capital on low-quality trades, leaving yourself empty when true opportunity appeared? Doing nothing is an act of mastery. It's not laziness. It's disciplined awareness. Cash, in the hands of a patient trader, is not wasted. It's potential energy. Cash is flexibility. Cash is readiness. The amateur sees cash as idle. The professional sees it as control. Yet most traders despise being flat. They equate inactivity with failure. They'd rather be wrong in motion than right in stillness. But that very mindset destroys accounts. The market's greatest opportunities don't show up daily or even weekly. They require time, structure forming, energy building, consensus shifting. When that energy finally releases, it does so with force. And the trader who waited is there to catch it. One trade can justify weeks of observation. Do you measure your progress by the number of trades or by the quality of decisions? That single distinction defines whether you're a gambler or a professional. The truth is, you must learn to embrace boredom if you want consistency. Boredom isn't a problem. It's the gateway to patience. The disciplined trader understands that waiting, watching, and restraining are the true tasks of the job. The amateur trades for excitement. The professional trades for probability. The market punishes excitement seekers but rewards the emotionally neutral observer. Every losing streak, my own included, has its roots in impatience, forcing trades, acting without edge, mistaking movement for opportunity. The illusion that something is happening drives endless losses. In truth, sometimes the highest form of work is inaction. The hardest move to make is the one you don't. No trade is ever certain. There's no guarantee, only probability. You can't eliminate risk. You can only manage it. What you seek isn't perfection, but asymmetry, where potential gain exceeds potential loss, where trend, timing, and context align. That's when you execute. And even then, you'll still be wrong sometimes. But if you take only high-probability trades, your consistency comes not from being right often, but from managing risk effectively when you're wrong. That's the game, to keep the odds tilted in your favor. The market will always whisper to you, "Look at this move. You're missing it. Jump in." But those whispers are emotional bait, the mirage of opportunity. Most breakouts fail. Most reversals fade. Most spikes collapse. These are not setups. They're psychological traps. The professional ignores the whispers and waits for confirmation, for clarity. He doesn't predict. He observes. He doesn't gamble. He executes when evidence supports action. That's why his losses remain small and his gains expand. Compare two traders. The first trades daily. Constant motion, constant emotion, constant drawdown. He experiences activity, not progress. His capital bleeds through overtrading. His energy dissolves into frustration. The second trader may sit quietly for days, even weeks, but when the edge appears, he strikes decisively. His mind is calm, his capital preserved, his confidence strong. Which trader do you think survives? This isn't merely a financial difference, it's a psychological one. Waiting for favorable odds demands emotional control, mastery over impulse. It means silencing the voice that demands action. It means trusting your preparation more than your anxiety. It means accepting nothingness as progress, knowing that restraint is profit in potential form. That kind of control is rare. Most traders are ruled by impulse. Are you strong enough to master yours? The market will always tempt you, every hour, every day. But most of those invitations are traps designed to exploit emotion. The trader who chases every move ends up exhausted and empty. The trader who waits, who truly waits for clear alignment, will discover that a few good trades a year can make all the difference. A handful of high-probability trades, combined with deep patience, can build a fortune, but only if you have the psychological strength to do nothing in between. Have you reached that level yet? Risk control at its core is not about numbers. It's about mindset. Survival always comes before profit. Everyone nods at this truth, but few live it. They enter the market dreaming of wealth, not realizing that staying in the game is the prerequisite to winning it. You can't profit without capital. You can't catch opportunity if you're already destroyed by prior losses. It's astonishing. So many traders obsess over winning trades, yet so few focus on surviving the losing ones. But consistency begins with survival. Risk control is simple in concept, difficult in practice. It requires emotional maturity, the acceptance of uncertainty, the willingness to take small losses quickly. It means cutting losses before they grow teeth. It means sizing positions, so no single outcome can define your fate. That's not math. That's psychology. Can you act decisively when the signal is clear and exit immediately when it's invalidated? Or do you hesitate, rationalize, and wait for the market to prove you right? That hesitation, that need to be right, is the crack through which ruin enters. I've watched brilliant analysts fail because they couldn't manage risk. They could forecast trends, read order flow, anticipate reversals, yet they froze when the market turned against them. Their skill was defeated by their ego. They told themselves, "It'll come back." But markets owe no one a comeback. Price is reality. Every moment of denial increases the cost of learning. How many times have you turned a manageable loss into a disaster simply because you couldn't let go? Risk control is humility in motion. It's the admission that you can be wrong, and that being wrong is irrelevant if you manage it correctly. It's recognizing that survival matters more than validation. Most traders fail because they want to be right more than they want to grow. They defend opinions instead of defending equity. But what's the value of being right if your account is empty? Survival is the only truth that matters. Proper risk control begins with position sizing, a reflection of belief in probability, not certainty. Yet many traders bet too much, convinced their conviction equals safety. But conviction doesn't reduce risk, only discipline does. There are no sure things. The only certainty in trading is uncertainty itself. That's why you size positions to ensure that even if you're completely wrong, you're still alive. Think of each loss as tuition, small, affordable tuition that buys experience, insight, and time. But most traders don't pay tuition. They wager their entire future on one belief. When the market teaches them humility, the lesson costs everything. Have you ever bet big out of certainty, only to watch it vanish? Stop losses, too, are psychological tools, not just mechanical ones. Setting them is easy, honoring them is where the test begins. As price nears your stop, your mind whispers, "Move it a little lower, give it room." That whisper is ego masquerading as logic. It tempts you to trade on hope instead of truth. But the market doesn't care about hope. Your stop exists for one reason: to protect you from yourself.